Hello, everybody, and welcome to part 2 of Through the Firewall. This is our first session for the week. We've got Carolyn ready to speak in just a moment, but before we get started, I just want to direct your attention to the bottom of the screen where you'll see the green button that says having trouble, click here to view on YouTube. So if at any point you have any issue with the broadcast, if things are cutting out or you can't hear or see, you can always click that button and it'll redirect you over to a YouTube feed. Alternatively, on the top right, you'll see a help button. You can click that and then click enable compatibility mode, and that will also help if you're having audio or video issues. So without further ado, I'm going to bring Carolyn Mace up, and I hope you all have a wonderful evening and enjoy the wonderful conversation.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining me. For the next 4 evenings, sessions, we're going to be doing prayer. I thought it would be so wonderful to spend 4 evenings together during this season of light, during the holy days. You know, if ever there was a time to pray together, to explore the interior of the mysteries, like miracles, like healing, like what's real behind within the holy world, these are the days to do that. So I thought, well, why not? Let's just do that. And if ever there was a time that we needed this, it's now. And so I thought I would gather the prayers that I wrote specifically on miracles and healing, because, you know, there are times when I would sit and wonder about, well, why can't this person have a miracle, or what is that? And do we run out of miracles, and what makes that? And these questions about how heaven interacts with us have always intrigued me. I don't know why, but they've just always intrigued me. And so sometimes in my prayers, when I will just sit back and have these conversations with the divine, with God. And mind you, they're one way. I mean, it's not like something shows up and I get to have a two-way conversation. But in a sense, it is two-way, because when you get into a deep state of prayer, or when I do, or when you do, there comes that point where you do feel or sense that you are not talking to yourself. You are engaged in a holy dialogue. And though it's not a dialogue with a human being, that somehow the questions you ask are being received, and that answers are being formulated, and they come in a form of revelation, or perhaps the dream world, or perhaps a sudden moment of like light, illumination, that sort of, or an epiphany where you suddenly get it. You just suddenly understand something. And in my own experience, it because I guess I live in a state of openness where I excuse me, where I expect that kind of where I expect the unexpected all the time, that I listen with awareness. I look with the way Teresa of Avila said, look for God in the small details. I try to live as though nothing is insignificant, but I don't project meaning where there is none. But I look at the world as though every day I'm mindful that it could be my last day, that every day will never come again. And that in itself, to me, makes every day a very holy experience that I think I will never see this day of my life again. I will never see any of this again. And it makes every day a wonder for me, an absolute wonder. This morning I had to walk down to my doctor um, in the village where I live for a back adjustment. And I had the earliest appointment she could. The only appointment she had available was this early one. It sounds like I wanted an early one. I didn't. I don't. Who wants an early appointment? But so there I was walking at 7:30 in the morning. I am never available to do anything at 7:30 in the morning, but there I was. And it always amazes me that there are people out and functioning at that hour. Who is out at 7:30 in the morning functioning, right? Not me. But there I was, and it was a wonder to me. It was an absolute wonder. The neighborhood was filled with people walking their dogs and covered in masks, but walking their dogs. And it was real cold and quiet. And I thought it just felt so beautiful to me. It just felt like a wonderland. And I thought, well, I don't often see the world this shade of light. And so everything became a new world for me, a new world for me. And I thought, well, that's what the world looks like at this hour. And that's what the color of the world is at this hour. And everything became brand new for me. And I know that may sound, how do I say, almost trivial, maybe, but not really, because it's exactly that type of thinking that becomes kind of a foundation of grace, where when you pray, I need some help. I need some help here. You participate in receiving that help by deciding, I need to see my world differently. I'll help you out, God. I will do my part. I will see my world differently because you're hiding here someplace. You're here somewhere. Because I'm not abandoned. If you didn't want me in this world, I would be dead. So I'm here and my work isn't done. So I'm obviously not looking the right way or in the right place. So I'm going to start again and reboot my world. I'm going to reboot my world and see it in a different shade of light. And this day is never going to come again, and I'm going to see it through a different shade of light. Light is the ingredient. And so this is the season of light. And I think if we could see clearly, which we can't, but if we could, we'd realize that we are solid light. That's what the physical form is, the solidification of light. And that when we die, we simply slip out and we go back to the natural element of light that our soul is. And that what the physical body is the densification of light, like mist to water to ice. And just like when people have near-death experiences and they always talk about immediately seeing a tunnel of light and being in this tunnel and then going back into their body and somehow fitting back in and being in light, and how incredibly blinding and beautiful, but conscious. It's this conscious light that embraces them, and that's what the universe is, this constant whole light that is conscious. That's the nature of God. Because we can't comprehend that, we've given God a form. God's got to look like us and has a story like us, has parents like us, all of which is, but if you need the story, keep the story. But the truth is that we're living in a universe of light, and that it's always around us and within us. And we are these beings of light. From my point of view, from my own work, from my own experience, I really realized the significance of this light factor because of medical intuitive readings, not because of all my work in reading and study of theology and esoteric literature and all of that. It's because of readings in which I realized that every choice we made, every attachment we had, every single interaction we had with a human being was really, it required and it included an exchange of light between us. It included this flow of light that when in fact we fed into an illusion, what in Taoism they call a spectacle, what Buddha would call an illusion, we attached our light to something and we gave it form. And it was like attaching our mist to something, and it gradually became a block of ice. And we had to continually feed that block of ice. As the years of our life go by, we continually feed these blocks of ice that we think are real, but they drain our light. They just drain our light. And the more it drains our light, the light has to come from somewhere to keep all these blocks of ice, all these memories, all these traumas frozen in place that form the history of our life. And it's not just traumas, it's thought forms that give form to our reality. Thought forms like a fear pattern or an attitude. Like, I have to have this or I'm not happy. You have to have what or you're not happy. I have to have this avocado every day, and I have to have this or this, or I won't be healthy and I won't be happy. These are belief patterns that have no truth to it. They're just habits. And you get locked in like a block of ice, and it becomes something around which you build your life. And when that's disturbed and disrupted, you start hemorrhaging. And here's the thing. My point is, the more you hemorrhage, the less light you have in your system, and the more dense you become. And the more dense you become, the darker, the lower your vibration. The lower your vibration, eventually, the light that comes in you every day, there's less light in you in present time, and more of that light goes out to finance your blocks of ice, so to speak. And what my experience is that it becomes more important to people to keep their ice, to like they become like the bricks of a castle almost, to fight for their ice than to let it melt away and retrieve their light and to get their light back into their system. I think if you've ever experienced what it is to break free of something, to break out of an addiction, or to do something like, for example, something that is not even that emotional overtly, like cleaning out your closet, which is often the exercise I suggest people start out with in terms of moving into a transformation process, is that they start out by doing something that doesn't appear to be threatening or transforming themselves that directly, but that they start with, like, I'm going to just clean out old stuff. And if you actually complete the task of cleaning out your closet and throwing out all this old stuff, cleaning out your kitchen, throwing out all, and what you will always say is, I feel so much lighter. I feel so much lighter. Because what you've actually done is you've brought back, you've melted through a lot of ice that was associated with all the memories, with all the holding onto, which is that first stage. Now, what I realized in doing these readings and in our relationship with these blocks of ice is that we create our relationship with time through this, with time and with space, and the speed at which we comprehend truth. And this is such a big deal to get. It's such a big deal. And it has to do with miracles, believe it or not. It has to do with miracles. And that's that, you know, for every block a person holds on to, and a block is not just an obvious thing, like a horrible childhood memory or a trauma or divorce or bad divorce or something like that. It's not just obvious. In fact, I think those are the lesser ones. Now that I've been in the field for so long, I think the more treacherous blocks are the smaller ones, that are the ones we cannot see, that are really, really the cutthroat blocks, the ones that, as a result of these traumas, we have this fear. We have this attitude. Excuse me. We have this hesitation about ourselves. We have this wound in our self-esteem, which comes as a result. And so we hold on to habits, or we hold on to fear patterns that in fact prevent us from acting in the present moment, from allowing things to unfold in our present moment that would transition our life at the speed of light, at the speed of light. Instead, we turn to our blocks of ice or our anchors, and we move at the speed of these blocks. And that's the speed at which we need events to unfold, like healing in illness, like allowing changes to happen in our life that could be quite positive and could be like the flow of light coming in that could change the density of the darkness in the place and could bring about a change of attitude, could bring about a change of habit, but it's just too much, too fast, too soon. And so we put the brakes on. We put the brakes on because we can't move that fast. We can't seem to adjust ourselves to the speed of light. Because what is a miracle? A miracle is something that happens outside ordinary speed. It is light. It is a light-filled event that takes over the speed of matter, and it eclipses it, and it takes over. And the next thing you know, people who live in the world of alarm clocks say nothing could happen this fast. This can't happen. But light has the power over matter. And if you understand that, if you understand the power of light over matter, of holy light over matter, you get that, in fact, it can happen. And I just, as an aside, miracles are really associated with the holy season. Look at the movies that come out. It's a Wonderful Life, and then there's, I'm sure many of you have seen that with Jimmy Stewart, and he has that angel Clarence who shows up to say, you've really had a wonderful life, and he wants to throw his life away because of Mr. Potter. And then all of these people come to his aid. And I think it's interesting, though I don't think they did it deliberately, but whatever, that in the movie that Frank Capra does, it's all the people that help out Jimmy Stewart's character in A Wonderful Life. Heaven does not suddenly let him win the lotto so that he can pay back Potter. He doesn't suddenly find a bucket of cash so he can pay back Potter. It's all the love that he had generated through all those years. And it's all these human beings that come together and bail him out. George Bailey, they bail George Bailey out. And so it's these human beings that, if you stand back, there are those who would never have, they just think it's an organic act of love, because that's what a miracle often looks like, an organic act of love that's just on steroids. But in fact, oftentimes there's a lot of participation behind the scenes in big and in small ways. But I when I think about the movie, as I thought about it when I was, doing my notes, what I really appreciate, though I think it's quite accidental, is that there was no high voltage miracle in there, like this apparition of something, or this appearance of money, or that Potter was suddenly, some angel went in there and said, it was, in fact, that the whole town came back, and it was an act of love and transformation of that sort, which is far more the way heaven works. It works through people. It works through us. I think one of the great truths about the way heaven works is heaven will not do for us what we can do for ourselves. Where the hand of God comes in is where we run out of options when we've tried everything. And we finally say, that's it. I'm stuck. I have really run out of options. So either you step in here or it's all over but the crying. That's when heaven comes in. And you could sit back and say, well, that sucks. And there are times when I think that sucks. But let me say, that's like, I think that's the whole nature of life, of us needing to find and discover what we're capable of believing and capable of doing and capable of accomplishing, instead of giving up. I think, if you think about it, where you feel best about yourself is when you didn't give up, is when you pushed yourself that extra mile, when you tried that when you jumped that extra hurdle. And when you think about what you respect most about yourself, it's when you pushed through those obstacles. And And somehow those are the jewels. Those experiences and those memories are the jewels that we gather in us that eventually become the fodder of our self-esteem, that real esteem that we rely upon, that becomes that sense of, I know I can trust myself. I know I can do this. I know that knowingness, know thyself. That's how we get there. And when we have exhausted that part and said, that's it. I don't know what else to do. And you really have. That's when we are wide open. A miracle, that texture for that kind of intervention, that kind of miracle happens, I think, when that kind of experience also, let me say this, it also leaves us in a non-negotiable place, which is also like part of the thing about heaven coming in, the non-negotiable factor. You can't argue with, it's like, that's it, I'm whatever. I mean, when you, not to go back to A Wonderful Life, but it somehow or other seems to fit this. Bailey's on the bridge. He's going to throw himself off. He's got no place to go but jail. He can't negotiate. There's nothing to negotiate. And that's the nature of heaven. It's like, don't negotiate with me. This is what you have to do. I'll do it this way. You have to accept this. This is how it's going to be. Or this is the only outcome. Or this is the help I'm sending you. There's something about that, those conditions that seem to be present when heaven comes in. I mean, that has been my experience. When I've talked to people who've had those miracles, they were at that place. That said, I want to add this. I'm talking about those biggies. I also think that miracles happen all the time in ways, I would call them miracleettes, those little ones that happen all the time that we don't notice, I really think heaven is forever interacting with us. And that if we really saw it, we'd be stunned. And I think, I want to go back and say this. Those bigger, grander miracles that we associate with, like healing and, going from one state of illness to a complete state of health, they happen, but they are not that common. But they happen. They do happen. And I think they would happen a lot more if people really understood something. And I could be wrong. Heaven did not appoint me their spokesperson, so let me just be very clear about that. But one of the things we have in common now is that we want to develop our inner self. It's kind of a characteristic of our time, of who we are. And it's like, why do we want to develop our inner self? What the heck is that about? Where did that come from? I mean, what's with this inner self stuff? But it is crucial. It's crucial to our understanding and to our getting that we really create our reality through the choices we make, that we are that powerful, that every choice we make is that powerful. And so in order for us to really, really, really take charge of our power, to take charge of ourselves, we have to develop a sense of individuation that's more than our ego, that is just about this is my name and it's more about this is my power. This is my power. There's a difference between this is my name and, get your hands off my body, to get your hands off my power. I can't let you manage my creativity, my creativeness, my consciousness, my choice, my capacity, the soul that I am, the soul that I am, all this power that I am. I can't put that in anybody's hands. I'm in charge of this, and I'm accountable for everything that I've created. And I can't afford to be intimidated by you so that you control my choices, because that's why I seethe with resentment when you do that, because I know I have violated something much deeper than my ego. My soul is screaming to come back home because I've imprisoned it. In that's a whole nother discussion we should have sometime, maybe next year. But for now, this self-esteem is really about your relationship to power. And part of the stages of that is evolving through the stage of saying, am I coming along here okay? This need for recognition, need for acknowledgement. But you have to get through that. You have to get through that acknowledgement, recognition, attention stage that is vulnerable but essential. And one of the vulnerabilities of that stage is the idea that is the experience of having something incredible happen to you, just to you, only to you, and being able to withstand the power of that like a miracle. And how often, how many times does something happen to you? You have a thought, you have this, and you have to go to someone else for validation. Do you believe that? I had this thought. Do you think that's a good thought? I had this idea. Do you think that's a good idea? I have this sweater. Do you think that looks okay? Everything has to be validated. To be given an experience, to go from one state of health or one state of being to another state of being, just like that. To have a disease taken away, replaced by healing. And it's unexplainable. You can't explain it. You'd be, first of all, faced with a tsunami of people who would say everything from, I don't believe it really happened to you. Are you sure you were sick? Are you sure? Where's the proof? Maybe you weren't sick. Maybe you're imagining things. Maybe this. All the experience, all the responses from people who have no faith, from people who don't want it to be true, from people who don't want it to be true because what it means if it is true, then they would have to consider that there was divine intervention. That there was. And then what? And then there's the people who think, why you and not me? The amount of self-esteem a person needs to sustain an experience that only they have had is quite astonishing. It changes your life in a second. And not everybody can have their life change in a second. Not everybody can. Which is why I think most miracles are more bite-sized. They happen. They happen all the time. But I think they're more bite-sized than these big dramatic ones. They happen more and they maneuver our life. They change more of a perception than the whole of our life. But they happen all the time. So excuse me, I feel like I have a feather in my throat. That is so annoying. So I'm going to read a prayer in here because I could really obviously talk all day. But so I wrote this, and I think this woman, she captures a lot of what I'm talking to you about, and maybe I'll chat a little bit afterwards. But so this is prayer 25. It's called Comments on a Miracle. Lord, I listened to a woman today tell me she experienced a miracle. She said she was healed of cancer. She said she prayed for a healing and you answered her prayers. She was overwhelmed with gratitude and joy and the desire to share her miracle story with everyone who would listen. She told me that she did not have much faith before her cancer, and now she deeply believes in you. I asked her what made her turn to prayer when she did not have a prayer life prior to her diagnosis of stage 4 cancer. She said that her doctor told her that she had essentially run out of medical options and that all she could do now was pray. And so she did just that. She prayed for divine intervention. She told me that the experience of nearly dying with cancer changed her completely. Assuming she was going to die, she gave away most of her belongings, noting how eagerly people wanted her stuff. She told me that as she saw people so familiar to her going through her personal belongings, she realized she was not going to be missed at all by some of them. Their lives would go on just fine without her. Others wept unconsolably. Lord, I think this lovely woman was given many miracles, the least of which was the recovery of her health. She spoke like a cosmic traveler, not wanting to burden her new life with the physical and emotional baggage from the last part of her journey. She wants to know only about the power of her inner life now and what she can do while she's still here to make the world a better place. She said her cancer was well worth the price of liberating her from her previous life. That transformation is what she considers the real miracle. I think that is the truth. I think when I talk to you about small miracles, actually that's what I'm talking about, is that I think I'm going to just read the guidance because it says what I want to say to you. Again and again, I witness that we truly do not know the genuine core of our suffering. Like blaming the boiling water when we poured the hot water too fast out of the pot and splashed ourselves. We want to place the blame somewhere else. But the truth is, our carelessness was the reason we got burned. Perhaps we were distracted or tense or angry, and for a split second, those fracturing emotions had more control over our balance than our common sense. We can treat the burn, but does ointment heal anger or anxiety? The healing we require is at a much deeper level, the level where our fears reside. Though a burn or cancer may cause severe suffering, the inner suffering of the soul is often far more debilitating. And in ways that are hidden even to the patient, we are often the last to know what it is about ourselves that requires the most healing. And that, I think, I've seen so often, that the real miracle is the revelation that we learn along the way, the revelation about ourselves. So when, my counsel to you when it comes to miracles is that you live in the consciousness that miracles happen all the time, but don't look for the biggies. Don't go there. Don't look for great big huge. Instead, focus your attention on something bite-sized, something that you really have struggles with, that are worth you saying, I need some help here. I have an issue. It's draining me. I'm aware it's draining my health. It's draining me. I'm trying every which way to get through this, and I'm working on it. And are you really working on it? I mean, I'm working on it, and I need some help here. And I think of this friend of mine who was an alcoholic, an active alcoholic, and she finally realized it, and so she thought she should go to an AA meeting, but she didn't really want to, but she knew she had to. Okay, now this is how heaven works. That thought, you have to get to AA. You have to. You're not going to get rid of this by yourself. Okay, so she drives to an AA meeting, but she doesn't go in, and she goes home. And she prayed, and she said, I want to quit drinking. Get me to want to, and I'll take it from there. And soon after that, she felt this ferocious will of hers kick in that said, that's it. I'm quitting. That was a miracle. That was a miracle. She was willing to do her part. Get me to want to, and I'll take it from there. You're not gonna, make every liquor store evaporate so I don't drink. Get me to want to quit. I just want to, but I don't really want to. So get me to that point. I think that's one of the most perfect stories. That extra grace, that's a miracle. That extra grace that you need in that moment. That's the kind of prayer. Give me some extra grace because I'm not strong enough to get through this. Those are those tiny little miracles, those tiny little infusions of grace that come down in that moment. Even if you say something like, get me through this, my temper is about to explode and it's not going to be pretty. So help me out here. Help me out. I need it. I need it because it's out of character for me not to lose my temper over this. So you got to drug me right now with grace. I mean, drug me. I mean, knock me out. This is how I pray. And I'm telling you, knock me out. And I fully expect that infusion of grace to calm me like a sedative. And I think it's fair for someone to say that you're just like doing mental placebo tricks with yourself. And I think that's a fair response, but they don't know how my mind works. And my mind is such an active agent. And so is my soul. And I know what a holy tranquilizer feels like. And anything that can calm down my mind when it's revved up, and when I'm all revved up, when I've said, you got to help me, I mean, big, huge help, because I fully expect that kind of tranquilizer that says, shh, stop now. And I hear it. And I come to attention and I calm inside. I just calm inside like that. And I fully expect that kind of grace hit. I'm not um, I'm not afraid of that kind of grace hit. And I'm not in awe of it. I would be in awe if it didn't happen. And what I am encouraging you is to become comfortable with that kind of hit. Just say, help me here. And just feel holy intimacy. It's right there. Just help me out. And don't wait like it's going to come in a week in the mail. It's right there. It's right there. Okay, so I had I had another prayer on miracles, and I thought I would throw that in too, but I don't care. We have time. And this is called the atmosphere of miracles. I was wondering this morning, Lord, does heaven have a limit on the number of miracles one person is allowed to experience in life? I've witnessed a few miraculous healings, and I'm well past doubting that you intervene in our lives. And I've spent time with people who've experienced miraculous healings, and I will admit that I was curious, why them? How could I not be curious if I did come up with conclusions about the way of heaven, if such a thing were possible at all? I concluded that there is no pattern to the blessing of a miracle. A miracle can happen anytime, any place, to anyone. Heaven doesn't play favorites, I've gathered. But in my little quest to crack open this mystery, I also concluded that healing is but one of many ways the messengers of heaven are sent to intervene in our lives. Life is a theater set up for divine intervention to occur all the time, and that is the truth. It really is set up to occur all the time. It did not occur to them. The common thread I found in all the people who experienced healings is that they were expecting you at any moment. It did not occur to them that you would not show up, even though they were not necessarily anticipating that their illness would be completely healed. But some form of assistance to them or their family would be given, and they were open to whatever grace you poured into their lives. One person told me, I always expect God. And what a powerful prayer. Always expect God, and so I will. So I think that's what I will say. This life is a theater that is set up for divine intervention. Live in that truth. Just live in this truth but it goes both ways. I mean, I think every choice you make matters. Everything we do to others matters. Everything. I mean, it all matters. And when I say matters, what do you mean matters? I think there is accountability. I think that everything we do, somehow our actions generate, just like how we treat someone today influences how they will be with us tomorrow. That's all there's to it. Actions create reaction. It will influence how they will be with us tomorrow. There's no two ways about it, but that's obvious. It's not so obvious that how we think about people influences their energy as well tomorrow and the next day. And that somehow or other, our thinking thoughts and our feeling thoughts and our psychic free radicals that we generate and all of that also influences the flow of creation, and it creates the greater and smaller events that form the everydayness of our lives. That events just don't happen. They need to be fueled by energy. And it's our energy mingling with the energy of others in our lives. And in the energy of the greater whole, things just don't happen. They have to be energetically financed. And that energy comes from us individually and collectively. And so if we're generating fear or hostility, that's the bank account it goes into. And it's from that bank account that events return to us. And that's the laws. Magnetic attraction, action and reaction. That's how it goes. Okay. Prayer 27 was I wanted to do divine intervention because I thought that is a form of a miracle, sort of in the same way, but sort of and sort of not. It's more subtle because divine intervention includes guidance and counsel and thoughts that come into you, and you don't necessarily have to be praying for some kind of great miracle or great divine intervention to have something happen, but it happens. You don't have to be a believer, by the way. You don't have to believe in anything. Heaven is always working its thing, doing its thing. It's always maneuvering. It's always heaven doesn't have a religion. It's in the business of getting light into human beings and having them respond to that light, or having them or watching them cave in the dark. So light and dark are always battling within us. They're always battling within us. They're our shadow and our light. And it's funny, I know many people don't like the winter. And I had my favorite aunt. It's funny the things that when you grow up, that's just it. Some things are formed in you, and that's all there's to it. And my aunt used to say, every January 2nd, like clockwork, she would say, I smell spring in the air. Can you smell? It's spring. Spring has started. I know it has. And I don't know if she did that because she just couldn't take winter or what, but from the time I was little, spring started January 2nd. And I'm a Chicago girl. I mean, Chicago winters are not warm. And so January 2nd, spring was in the air. But also about that time, the days started to get longer by a minute to 2 minutes a day. And so the race was on to see how much longer every day how much longer the sun was out every single day. And so we would chart, and we still do this. The return of the light. And she would say at the end of January, see, it's an hour more light. And she said, more light. It's always, we're moving toward the light. And it will always return. And by the end of February, we'll have this much more light, and then March, and then spring, and it was always this excitement to move toward the light. And it just seemed like all life was going toward the light. And I grew up with this, and she didn't mean, I don't think she meant it in a spiritual way at all. It was actually just organic. It was a matter of nature. It's 2 minutes longer every day, and off we go toward the light. And it's the end of the winter because the days are now getting longer. And so we're done with the winter. It's over. We're moving toward the light. And that became this pattern in me that I realized I would refer to that when things were difficult, I would think, just 2 more minutes today. I can just, it's too, this difficulty is 2 minutes shorter today. It's 2 minutes shorter today. There's more light than darkness. It's 2 minutes shorter today. And it became this way of moving everything back toward the light, no matter what it was. I can get through this. It's just because tomorrow it'll be 2 minutes less of this, 2 minutes less. And by the end of the week, that's 15 minutes less. And by the end of next week, it's a half hour. And it was always more light. And it was me putting more light in. So I'm just giving that to you as this journey that I've lived, and I didn't even realize that I was living it all my life until until these last few years. I was laughing with my brother about it, that we just always have done it. But what a gift in a funny kind of way. Okay, a request for divine intervention. Lord, I received a call today from someone asking for prayers. She is suffering horribly. In moments like this, I have to remind myself that you know the content of my letters, of my prayers, and who I am now praying for. I know better than to ask for specifics, since the content of my heart is not hidden from your view. I admit I'm tempted to ask, but I have learned, and I continue to learn, that I do not know what is best for another person. I do not know if you're calling her home, if this is the closure of her life. The mystery of life never ceases to grip my attention. I have seen some people recover from terminal illnesses at the last minute, one person after receiving the last rites. I know you sent an angel from your healing realm to deliver that healing grace. Even the physicians said the recovery was a miracle. But perhaps our time to depart from life is negotiable after all. I don't know. I do know that I'm asking for the grace of mercy to be given to this woman. Please let that grace flow abundantly through her and upon her family. I know mercy is a grace that, like a mustard seed, can bring down an obstacle we consider a mountain in our lives. And I'm asking for mercy, Lord, upon this family. Maybe with mercy, they will be able to forgive what they think of as unforgivable. It is not you who needs to be merciful, Lord. It is we who are without mercy far too often. We are blind to the consequences of having a merciless heart. Mercy is a grace poured into the human heart for the human heart. So grant them mercy, for I know the healing power of this grace. Obviously, this was a family who was struggling with things they needed to forgive and let go of. But what I want to say to you about divine intervention in your life is that when you ask, I need some help, or help them, never tell heaven how, although it's tempting. I wanted to tell heaven, I wanted to instruct God more than once. Never, ever offer that kind of, caveat on your prayer. And while I can't prove this is what I suspect. And look at it in your own life. When someone offers to help you and then tells you how they're going to help, you want their help? I mean, let me put it this way. When someone is insisting that they know the type of help you need, and that's the only kind of help you're going to get, they generally do more harm than good. And really, 90% of the time, we don't really know when we're in that kind of dire straits, or when someone is really in trouble, we actually don't know what they need. We have no idea. We don't know what's going on in the depths of their soul, and we sure don't know what's going on in the whole of their hologram, their soul's journey. We know nothing. We know nothing about what's really going on, and we know nothing about what is to come. We know nothing. All we know is two things: what we see them suffering, and how the suffering's affected us, and how much of it we want to change so that we're no longer uncomfortable. Those are the two things we know. And that's bad data. It's just useless data. It motivates us to want to do something. But the best thing we can do at that point is to ask, what can I do for you in this moment that would really serve you to get through this, and that would really serve somebody? And the second is that in your prayers, say, just channel grace. I am praying for grace, and I take my hands off the steering wheel. And in that same way, that's how you pray for yourself. When you say, I need help, and I'm not going to tell you, I'm not even going to request. And that's a challenging way to pray, because you are going to discover how much you don't trust God in prayers like that. Because it's like the surrender prayer, you're going to realize how difficult it is for you to actually surrender, for you to actually say, I surrender the situation for you, get me out of this, or help me out, or tell me what to do. And that, in fact, that is a very terrifying prayer to say. And because so many people can't say that prayer, it is a measure of, I don't know if I want to say, because I tell people that if that prayer is a difficult one, to consider that is a measure of how much superstition they have about God. It is a belief in a superstitious God that will somehow come in and disrupt their life, and take their bank account and toss them out on the streets and say, see, now I answered your prayer. And somehow people cannot shake that superstitious idea of this off-planet God that operates in this, dare I say, Catholic way, puritanical Catholic punishing way, that is just a storybook God, a nightmare God. But I think that if you could, I think that's perhaps why heaven is often so invisible. Because if it was visible, I think it would terrify people. I do. I think it would terrify people. One day, years ago, when I lived in New Hampshire, and I lived on a farm, and I was sitting, and we had a publishing company, and I was the editor. And so I would bring manuscripts up to the farmhouse, and so I could read them and go through them or edit. And I was sitting on the couch in my living room, and I was reading this manuscript. And it was a sunny day, and I had these overstuffed this couch, and I had a glass coffee table. And I'm sitting there reading this manuscript, and I look up, and I see this form coming up from my coffee table. And I look, and I thought I was going to have I was having an apparition, a genuine bona fide apparition. And I look, And I put down the manuscript and I thought, oh my God, what is this? And this like smoky thing starts to, it was almost like something out of a genie bottle, that kind of thing. And it's like swirling like this. And I'm watching this and I'm watching this. And I thought, I'm going to have an apparition. Wow. What it was that I had a crystal ball sitting on a wooden tripod, and the sun had been coming through that, and it had so overheated, it was starting to burn the tripod. And so much for my apparition. I mean, but look, the first thing I think of is I'm having an apparition, not I'm burning my house down. It goes to show you where my head's been for years. What do I tell you? My last thing on divine intervention. There's no such thing as a request that is not worth your time when it comes to something like know the source of your suffering. Know the source of your suffering. It's been my experience, really, that, life provides us with enough reason for pain and suffering. The COVID virus, for example, comes along and it sweeps in and it changes how many people's, all of our lives. I mean, I can't, it's changed all of our lives. And yet, there are choices people make not to wear a mask, not to social distance, and to gather in groups that add to an unnecessary quota of suffering. So there's the organic part of life, and then there's the participation in suffering and pain. So when it comes to divine intervention, part of what is really the worthy inner work is to ask for help in ways that say, I need to understand. I need you to intervene in my own nature in helping me understand myself, in helping you understand, and helping me see clearly about my own attitudes, my own, where I can improve, where I'm not seeing myself clearly. That's where we could pray for divine intervention. And take your hands off the steering wheel. Okay. All right, now this. This is worth a class, this one. This is prayer 62. What is real? What is real? What I wrote this prayer after I had been with several people. Oh no, lay down. I'd been with several people over the course of a period of time, young people who were dealing with who were dealing with depression, who were dealing with anxiety, who were dealing with inner sufferings that I really, really felt were coming from a place much deeper than I think previous generations, that somehow we're suffering in a way that is it has more dimensions to it. I mean, maybe that's the best way that I could put it. And one of the reasons, is that I really think somehow we are journeying. Shh, mommy's teaching. We are journeying in between realities. We are in between, like, time zones. We are going from being 5 sensory to multisensory. And as we make this transition between time zones, between reality bases, our inner world, our inner perceptual system is activating, and it's actively exploring dimensions of reality that our mind can't articulate, that our mind can't identify, because it's not, like Teresa of Avila would say when she'd have a mystical experience, my mind wants to come with, but it can't. So our energetic nature is trying to report into our mind, but we don't have an energetic vocabulary yet that is sufficiently capable of relaying to our 5 sensory nature what our multisensory nature is experiencing, or how to interpret a multi-energetic experience and interpret that in kairos, or physical language. And I think that because this is happening more and more frequently, I think that for a number of people, especially the younger generations, and I don't discount people in their 60s and the 70s and 50s or whatever, but the younger generation, because they have to find occupations, they have to make their way in a world in which half their physical technology is energetic technology, but so is their human technology. So is their human technology. And I think we're entering this kairos chronos world, this timelessness and time. And that is so strongly a mystical plane. And yet, if someone lacks an understanding of their mystical nature, and not in religious terms, but in energetic terms, in energetic language, in basic spiritual cosmic language, that in fact you can perceive multiple dimensions, that you can have a energetic depression, that you can perceive and perhaps even enter another dimension and encounter voices, maybe, that the only thing our world can do is diagnose you as mentally ill, or that diagnose you as schizophrenic, or diagnose you because we haven't yet expanded the parameters of our linear world to become a hologram in which we redefine the parameters of what is real and what is possible. So there comes a moment, Lord, when we must realize how limited we are to help another person, much less heal them. What do? We do what we can, but the rest is up to you. I see this truth more and more, especially when it comes to the suffering people endure within the depths of their own consciousness. We've gone beyond the boundaries of the mind now. We're wading through inner space like astronauts exploring the cosmic landscape of the soul. Who knows what we've stored inside of us? How many secret portals are we opening, perhaps to past lives or even to future ones? I know the soul is the timeless part of ourselves, residing within this temporal form. We are time and timelessness, body and spirit, matter and energy. Perhaps, Lord, that timeless dimension of ourselves, that inner sacred terrain, will take centuries for us to comprehend. My observations tell me that human suffering has up-leveled a few notches recently. I'm watching more and more people lost within the vast landscape of the inner self. I see them unlocking reservoirs of darkness they cannot or do not realize they have to explore in order to heal. Is that the role of sacraments and holy rituals? I'm wondering anew about our need to bless and protect the unseen part of ourselves. We are not even that good at caring for the parts of ourselves that we can see. So I should not be surprised we have no idea how to attend to the needs of our soul. I am dearly close to one such person, someone I've known and loved since she was born, and I've watched her journey further into her darkness year after year, growing increasingly unable to find her way back to the here and now, to this present moment, to the voices all of us can hear, including one another's. She told me, Lord, that she can no longer tell what is real and what is not. The experience of her physical life is real, but she's shifted her center of gravity to the timeless dimension. I can see that. What she is experiencing there is not the same kind of real that occurs in physical time, and tragically, she cannot discern the difference. Her awake time and dream time are colliding. This condition, Lord, is considered an illness, but is it? Is experiencing timelessness an illness? Are we afraid to identify what this experience really is for fear of entering into the mystical phase of medicine? These people, through their anguish and pain, are leading modern medical researchers into the ancient domain of the sacred, if only indirectly. Of this I have no doubt. The day will come, Lord, when the physician will prescribe prayer and contemplation for the healing of the inner self. It will become clear that the soul illness exists and prayer is the only medicine that works. So what I will say is that I'm going to return to the topic of light and darkness. Every single person today, all of us, we cycle through light and darkness. We very much do. And we deeply live inner lives. Our inner lives are enormously important to us. And you can't go deep into your inner life without without encountering places inside of yourself, or fears or feelings or portals that you didn't know were there or whatever. And you have no idea how sometimes in poking deep in yourself, you could just unlock an emotion or a vibration of a vibration. We're not accustomed to thinking in that language. We're not accustomed at all. We always think there's a reason. There's got to be a reason for this. What's the reason for this? I don't know what the matter is. It's got to be a matter. There's got to be a reason, because we always approach everything from that view, when in fact, You could have gone deep into the level of the soul where you were in a vibrational field. A vibrational field of matter, of a vibrational field in your soul that just has a certain darkness to it, a certain vibration to it that starts rumbling. There isn't an issue. There isn't any of that. There's a rumbling, and then it starts coming up like a geyser, and it starts to stir things. And it could be, for example, that it's attached to the fear of your own death or the fear of your own vulnerability. Mama's coming. Mama's coming. The fear of your own vulnerability. Fears you didn't think you were going to experience for some time. But that's how it starts to erupt. Fear of the of not knowing what it is you believe that's really deeply rupturing in you. Shh, mommy's teaching. Shh, shh. Okay, so that's my dog's babysitter is not here tonight. Sorry. So that another thing that I want to say to you about that is that there is also the matter of the deeper we go, the more questions you ask, the more you ponder, the more you realize, I don't know what's out there. I don't know what's possible. I don't know. And stop. Mommy be right there. Shh. Okay. Sorry. So I'm about to have a dog emergency down here. Okay. Abby, please. Mommy's here. So I am going to lead you on a prayer right now because I am having a canine emergency. And for those of you who know dogs, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So if you will just settle with me, I'm going to lead you on a healing prayer. Abigail. And you'll excuse me for having to end the class 3 minutes early tonight, but I am having a serious canine emergency. Shh, stop. Forgive me. Just close your eyes. Abby. Okay. Sit up here by mommy. Okay. Thank you for your patience tonight. Now, all right, close your eyes and imagine hover over me, Lord. Hover over me and grant me the grace of mercy. Grant me the grace of mercy for reasons I don't even know. Grant me the grace of healing. Grant me the grace of healing. And let that grace flow through me while I sleep, while I rest, while I move through the night. Let this grace move through me and heal those parts of myself I do not even know need healing. And let this grace move through me and into the people I love and into the people I do not love. And Lord, let this grace flow abundantly into all the corners of the earth. into all the corners of the earth now more than ever. Now more than ever. Hover over all of us, Lord. Amen. Thank you. And I'll see you for session 2. And Abby will have a babysitter. Thank you so much. Good night.